The soft glow of a flickering oil lamp casts long, dancing shadows across the uneven stone walls. You stand, or perhaps you merely drift, on the precipice of a dream, where the scent of dust and something faintly metallic hangs heavy in the air. This isn't the crisp, digital hum of your modern world. No, this is the deep, resonant silence of a bygone age, broken only by the occasional distant toll of a bell, or the sleepy creak of timbers settling in the quiet night. You are here, now, in a workshop shrouded in the mystery of the Renaissance, a time when the boundaries between science and magic were as blurred as the edges of a fading memory. Forget your ergonomic chair and your caffeinated beverages. You probably won't make it through this day without a profound urge to curl up and let the stories wash over you. Before we truly surrender to the embrace of this forgotten era, if you find yourself drifting pleasantly, or perhaps even on the verge of a gentle snore, a quiet tap on that like button would be much appreciated. And for those who enjoy this slow amble through history, a subscription ensures you won't miss our next whispered journey. Tell us in the comments below, where in the world are you currently allowing yourself to unwind? And what time is it there as you prepare to slip into the past? Knowing where our sleepy travelers hail from adds another layer to this shared, quiet experience. Now, let's ease into the night's journey. A journey not of grand battles or royal courts, but of whispered secrets, arcane symbols, and the persistent, human yearning for transformation. You find yourself in a narrow, cobbled alleyway, slick with the recent passing of a gentle rain. The air is cool, carrying the faint, earthy smell of damp stone and something else, something acrid and sharp that makes your nose twitch slightly. Overhead, the sky is a deep, velvety indigo, studded with stars that seem impossibly bright, unmarred by the light pollution of centuries to come. A lone cat, a sleek shadow, slinks past your feet, its eyes gleaming like emeralds in the gloom before it vanishes into a darker recess. You pull your cloak tighter around you, though you don't actually have a cloak, do you? It's just the feeling of it, the imagined weight, the subtle scratch of coarse wool against your neck, a phantom sensation that grounds you in this nascent reality. The sounds are muted here, a distant dog's bark, the soft rustle of leaves stirred by an imperceptible breeze, the occasional muffled clang from behind a heavy wooden door. This is Florence, perhaps, or Venice, or any one of 100 bustling, intricate cities of the 15th century, where life unfolded at a pace that would make your modern heart seize up in confused despair. Your destination, though you don't consciously know it yet, is a workshop, a sanctum where the most peculiar and persistent dreams of humanity are given form, or at least attempt to. The street names are unpronounceable tangles of consonants and vowels, yet you navigate them with an instinctual ease, as if your very essence has absorbed the convoluted urban planning of the era. A lantern hangs precariously above a doorway ahead, casting a small, jaundiced pool of light onto a weathered wooden sign that depicts, somewhat crudely, a coiled serpent devouring its own tail, the Ouroboros, a symbol of eternal cyclical renewal. Or perhaps it's just a very hungry snake who bit off more than it could chew. Metaphorically speaking, of course. This, you sense, is where the alchemist toils. The major historical fact that quietly underpins this entire endeavor, one that fueled countless lifetimes of dedicated, often fruitless, labor, is this. The central aim of alchemy for centuries was the transmutation of base metals, particularly lead, into gold. This wasn't just a get-rich-quick scheme, though certainly the prospect of untold riches was a powerful motivator. It was also deeply intertwined with philosophical and spiritual quests for perfection, for the great work that would elevate not just matter, but the human soul itself. There's a subtle, almost imperceptible hum coming from behind the door, a low thrum that vibrates through the very cobblestones beneath your feet. It's the sound of furnaces, of bubbling retorts, of 1,000 whispered hopes and forgotten failures. You push the heavy door inward, and the scent of brimstone and something vaguely reminiscent of burnt toast washes over you. You step inside, leaving the quiet darkness of the alleyway behind, and the true work begins. Or, rather, the work of drifting off to sleep while someone else does the heavy lifting. The air inside the alchemist's workshop is a thick, humid tapestry of odors. Metallic tangs, the sweet decay of fermenting herbs, the sharp, almost acrid bite of unknown chemicals, and a pervasive, earthy smell, like a potter's shed mixed with a forgotten attic. Dust motes, illuminated by shafts of weak filtered light, dance in slow, lazy spirals, like tiny, bored fairies performing an interpretive dance. You see, with your newfound sleepy clarity, a dizzying array of equipment, glass retorts with swan-like necks, their bellies bulging with murky liquids. Alembics, like intricate glass brains, connected by convoluted tubing. Sturdy earthenware crucibles stained with the residue of countless experiments. And furnaces, their fiery hearts glowing like slumbering dragons, their heat radiating outwards in lazy waves. It's a bit like a medieval chemistry lab, if the chemists were also part-time mystics and full-time optimists, convinced that enough stirring and chanting could defy the very laws of physics. Shelves line the walls, groaning under the weight of glass jars filled with powders of every conceivable hue, vermilion reds, sulphurous yellows, deep, mysterious blacks, and shimmering silvers. Some are labeled with curious symbols, others with names that sound like spells themselves. Dragon's blood, philosopher's stone dust, lunar tears. You wonder what an ancient alchemist would make of your modern kitchen, filled with things like instant coffee and microwavable popcorn. They'd probably declare it all the work of powerful elemental spirits, or perhaps just very clever imps with a flair for convenience. There's a gentle bubbling sound from a nearby retort, a soft, hypnotic plink-plonk as condensation drips into a receiving flask. It's the kind of sound that encourages long, slow blinks, the kind that whispers, "Don't worry, the important stuff isn't happening too quickly." In the center of this alchemical cosmos stands a figure, the alchemist himself. He is a man of indeterminate age, his face etched with lines of concentration and perhaps a touch of chronic sleep deprivation. His hands, gnarled and stained, move with a deliberate, almost ritualistic precision as he tends to a simmering concoction. He wears a simple, practical tunic, smudged with soot and various unidentifiable stains, a testament to countless hours spent in this dimly lit sanctuary. His hair is a wild, untamed tangle, and his eyes, when he occasionally lifts them to peer at a bubbling flask, possess an intense, almost feverish light. Yet beneath that intensity, there's a profound, almost childlike hope. He embodies the very spirit of the pursuit, tireless dedication, unwavering belief, and perhaps just a hint of delightful delusion. Historians still debate whether many alchemists truly believed they were on the verge of turning lead into gold, or if the gold they sought was purely spiritual transformation. One fascinating, if somewhat odd, cultural tidbit of the era relates to the very substances the alchemists worked with. You see, not all their efforts were aimed at gold. They also dabbled in the creation of various elixirs and tinctures, some for medicinal purposes, others for more esoteric applications. A particularly bizarre belief that persisted through parts of the Renaissance was the notion of mumia, powdered human remains, often from Egyptian mummies, believed to possess powerful curative and alchemical properties. Yes, you heard that right. While our alchemist here seems to be focusing on metals, just imagine the historical equivalent of someone rummaging through ancient tombs for medicinal ingredients. It makes your modern obsession with organic kale seem positively mundane. The alchemist carefully, almost reverently, adds a pinch of shimmering reddish powder to the bubbling liquid in the retort. The liquid shimmers, briefly turning a deep Venus red before settling back into a murky gray. He watches it with an unwavering gaze, a silent prayer perhaps forming on his lips, or maybe just a mental note about the temperature. He's not just a scientist. He's an artist, a philosopher, and a stubborn man refusing to accept the mundane nature of matter. His laboratory, then, is not merely a collection of glassware and furnaces. It is a crucible where ambition, superstition, and genuine curiosity simmer together, a slow-burning fire that illuminated the intellectual landscape of the age, even if it often left behind more smoke than gold. You feel a gentle warmth emanating from one of the furnaces, a comforting heat that wraps around you like a soft blanket. The rhythmic bubbling continues, a lullaby of chemical reactions, promising nothing, yet hinting at everything. The rhythmic bubbling in the retort continues, a persistent, almost soporific sound that anchors you to this strange, timeless space. It's the kind of sound you might hear from a slow-drip coffee maker, if that coffee maker were intent on brewing philosophical truths rather than just your morning pick-me-up. The alchemist, whose name you've not yet heard, but whose presence fills the room, now moves with unhurried grace towards a large, heavy tome resting on a wooden lectern. Its cover is bound in ancient, weathered leather, its pages yellowed with age and covered in a bewildering array of diagrams, symbols, and tiny, meticulous script. This isn't just a cookbook. It's a spiritual guide, a scientific treatise, and possibly a very long-winded diary all rolled into one. Many of these books, often passed down through generations of practitioners, contain coded messages or deliberately obscure language to protect their secrets, or perhaps simply because clarity wasn't always a Renaissance strong suit. It's a bit like trying to read your great-aunt's recipe for mystery casserole, where half the ingredients are vaguely described and the cooking time is until it feels right. He traces a finger along the complex diagram, a circular mandala intertwined with geometric shapes and astrological symbols. It depicts, you realize, the stages of the alchemical process, from the initial nigredo, the blackening or putrefaction, where the crude matter begins its transformation, through various colorful phases, culminating in the rubedo, the reddening, which signifies the achievement of the philosopher's stone and the successful creation of gold. Or so the theory goes. This intricate dance of symbols and stages wasn't just artistic flourish. It was fundamental to the alchemists' understanding of their work. A crucial element in the alchemical process, believed to be the catalyst for transmutation, was the fabled philosopher's stone. This wasn't a physical stone in the way you might pick up a pebble from the beach. Instead, it was envisioned as a mythical substance, sometimes a powder, sometimes a solid, possessing the power to transmute base metals into gold, and, even more importantly, to grant immortality or universal cure. Think of it as the ultimate multi-tool, if that multi-tool could also fix your bad back and your financial woes. The alchemist sighs, a soft exhalation that seems to stir the dust motes into a more vigorous dance. He picks up a small, intricately carved wooden box from the lectern, its surface worn smooth by countless touches. He opens it to reveal a collection of tiny, oddly shaped glass vials, each containing a minuscule amount of a different substance. Some are powders, some are tiny crystals, others are viscous liquids. He selects one, a vial holding a few grains of what looks like crystalline salt, shimmering faintly in the dim light. This, you intuit, is a rare and precious ingredient, perhaps something distilled over weeks, or even months, through arduous processes. It's the alchemical equivalent of that one obscure spice you have to order online from a very specific, slightly suspicious vendor to make your grandmother's secret recipe perfect. An obscure cultural tidbit that might make you chuckle, or perhaps just raise a sleepy eyebrow, is the peculiar belief in homunculi. Yes, some alchemists, particularly in later periods, were rumored to attempt the creation of miniature artificial humans, often by fermenting certain biological materials in a retort under specific astrological conditions. While our alchemist here seems a bit too focused on metallic transformation to be dabbling in tiny manufactured people. It speaks to the boundless, often bizarre, curiosity that characterized the era. Imagine trying to explain to your spouse that your new pet is actually a tiny person you grew in a jar. That's certainly a conversation for the ages. He returns to the retort, holding the tiny vial with the utmost care. The quiet hum of the furnace continues, a steady drone that feels like the background music to a very long, very deliberate dream. The alchemist hovers over the bubbling liquid, his brow furrowed in intense concentration. He doesn't rush. Every movement is slow, measured, almost as if time itself has elongated within these walls. He uncorks the vial with a gentle pop, a sound surprisingly loud in the hushed chamber, and carefully, with a pair of delicate silver tongs, he drops the crystalline salt into the bubbling concoction. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, a faint, almost ghostly green glow emanates from the liquid, pulsating softly like a distant, tired heartbeat. The alchemist watches, utterly still, his eyes wide with a mixture of anticipation and perhaps just a hint of exasperated hope. The air seems to thicken around you, charged with the quiet energy of 1,000 unspoken possibilities. The subtle green glow in the retort pulses, a silent internal aurora that casts ephemeral tints onto the alchemist's face. It's the kind of glow you might see from a particularly moody lava lamp, if that lamp held the secrets to eternal life and immense wealth. He remains motionless, utterly absorbed in the slow, almost grudging dance of the chemicals. His breath is held, his shoulders hunched in a posture of profound expectation. The quiet of the workshop deepens, becoming almost oppressive, as if even the dust motes have paused their aerial ballet to witness this critical moment. You can practically hear the collective sigh of every alchemist who ever tried this very step, across centuries and continents, all hoping for that elusive golden shimmer. He exhales slowly, a long, drawn-out sound of controlled tension. The green light, after a few more hesitant throbs, begins to fade, receding back into the murky gray of the liquid. The alchemist's shoulders slump ever so slightly, a fleeting moment of quiet disappointment, quickly masked by a practiced resilience. This is the daily rhythm of the alchemist. Long hours of meticulous preparation, moments of intense, breathless anticipation, and then, often, the quiet, almost gentle, return to the drawing board. It's a bit like being a gardener, patiently waiting for a rare bloom, only to find the bud never quite opens. Except in this case, the bloom is gold, and the waiting can span a lifetime. He doesn't despair, though. There's no dramatic smashing of glassware, no frustrated shouts that echo through the quiet streets of your imagined Renaissance city. Instead, he simply nods, a small, almost imperceptible gesture of acknowledgement, as if confirming a hypothesis, even if it's not the one he'd hoped for. He reaches for a small leather-bound notebook and a quill, its feather worn smooth from use. He dips the quill into a small pot of ink and meticulously scribbles notes in the margins of his tome, detailing the exact measurements, the precise temperature, the exact moment the green glow appeared and faded. This meticulous record-keeping, often overlooked in the popular image of the wild-eyed alchemist, was a crucial part of their process, a nascent form of scientific methodology buried beneath layers of arcane symbolism. While often viewed as proto-science, alchemists were meticulous record-keepers, documenting their processes and observations in detail, a practice foundational to modern scientific inquiry. They were, in a way, the original data analysts, just with more mercury and fewer spreadsheets. Remember the street you walked past earlier? The one with the faint metallic tang in the air. That tang often came from the widespread use of lead and mercury in alchemical experiments. Both elements were considered essential to the process of transmutation, despite their rather unpleasant side effects on the human body. Our alchemist, you notice, occasionally rubs his temples, a subtle gesture that might hint at a persistent headache, or perhaps just the accumulated exhaustion of his unending quest. It reminds you that while they sought perfection, the path was often riddled with imperfections and a good dose of toxicity. An obscure cultural tidbit from this period is the fascinating intersection of alchemy with art and literature. Many Renaissance artists, influenced by Neoplatonism and Hermeticism, incorporated alchemical symbolism into their works, often subtly, sometimes overtly. Take, for instance, certain paintings where specific colors or arrangements of figures might represent alchemical stages, or where an obscure symbol could be a visual nod to the Philosopher's Stone. So, next time you're idly browse an art history book, just imagine that even the cherubs might be secretly telling you how to make gold. It adds a whole new layer of appreciation, doesn't it? The alchemist cleans his quill, then turns his attention to another setup. This time, it's a series of clay retorts nestled in a bed of ash within a smaller, glowing furnace. He takes up a long, slender iron rod and carefully pokes at the glowing embers, adjusting the heat with an experienced eye. The new setup is designed for a slower, more sustained heating process, a patient simmering that can last for days, even weeks. It's the marathon, not the sprint, of alchemical endeavors. He moves with a quiet, almost meditative focus, his movements a gentle ballet of intent and precision. The air, though still thick with the workshop's peculiar aromas, feels calmer now, the earlier tension having dissipated like steam. You lean into the persistent hum of the furnace, feeling the warmth against your imaginary back. The quiet persistence of this man, chasing a dream that defies reality, is strangely comforting. It's a reminder that even in a world obsessed with quick fixes, sometimes the most profound transformations are the ones that take the longest, slowly, steadily, in the quiet glow of a hopeful fire. The gentle, almost imperceptible dripping of distilled liquid into the receiving flask marks the quiet passage of time in the alchemist's workshop. It's a sound that's both monotonous and utterly mesmerizing, like a slow-motion clock counting out the seconds of a very long, very patient experiment. The alchemist, having set his distillation in motion, now turns his attention to a different section of his cluttered workspace. His movements are unhurried, each action deliberate and precise, as if he's performing an ancient, sacred dance. He knows, perhaps instinctively, that rushing the process is akin to rushing a blooming flower. It simply won't yield the desired result. He approaches a large, flat stone table, its surface scored with countless marks and stains. On it lies a collection of raw materials, lumps of dull, gray lead, dark, glittering chunks of what looks like iron ore, and various powders, some sparkling like crushed gems, others as fine and subtle as dust. He picks up a small, heavy hammer and a chisel, their surfaces worn smooth by years of use. With careful, measured blows, he begins to chip away at a particularly stubborn piece of lead. The dull thud of the hammer on metal, a low, resonant sound, joins the chorus of quiet background noises, blending seamlessly with the hiss of the furnace and the drip of the still. It's the sound of raw matter being prepared, of the earthly being readied for its ethereal journey. A significant aspect of alchemical practice, one often misunderstood, was the profound role of astrological observation and timing. Alchemists believed that the success of their work was deeply influenced by the alignment of celestial bodies. Specific planetary conjunctions, lunar phases, and even the positions of individual stars were thought to imbue the materials with certain energies, making them more receptive to transformation. This meant that an alchemist might spend weeks or even months simply waiting for the right moment to begin a crucial stage of their work. Imagine having to check your horoscope before you could even start your morning commute. It certainly adds a layer of cosmic complexity to what might otherwise seem like a purely chemical endeavor. Historians still debate whether this astrological component was primarily a practical guide, a symbolic framework, or a genuine belief in celestial influence. An obscure cultural tidbit that might make you smile in your drowsy state involves the rather charming, if somewhat naive, belief in what were called sigils or talismans. These were often intricate drawings or engraved objects, believed to imbue materials or even the alchemists themselves with specific planetary or angelic powers. Imagine someone drawing a tiny magical doodle on their lead ingot, hoping it might make it more amenable to turning into gold. It's a testament to the era's boundless creativity and willingness to embrace a myriad of influences in their pursuit of knowledge. The alchemist continues to chip away at the lead, slowly reducing the large chunk into smaller, more manageable pieces, almost like a sculptor preparing his clay. He does this with a deliberate, almost meditative focus, his movements a symphony of subtle precision. The metallic scent in the air intensifies slightly, a primal reminder of the materials he's working with, the very essence of the earth under his patient hands. He gathers the smaller pieces into a sturdy crucible, a heavy, earthenware vessel designed to withstand extreme heat. The faint light from the window, now a deeper, more profound blue as night truly settles, casts his profile into sharp relief, highlighting the lines of concentration around his eyes. You feel the cool stone beneath his hands, a subtle sense of its unyielding nature, and the persistent, quiet hope that lies within this workshop. The steady drip-drip from the still continues, a soft, insistent rhythm that lulls you deeper into the story, into the quiet, patient world of the Renaissance alchemist. The faint, rhythmic hiss of the furnace, a sound like a distant, lazy serpent, now dominates the ambient soundscape of the alchemist's workshop. It's a backdrop to his quiet diligence, a mechanical breathing that suggests patience personified. He now focuses on a set of delicate glass vials, no larger than your thumb, arranged meticulously on a wooden tray. Each contains a different liquid, some clear, some tinted with the faintest whisper of color, a pale amber, a watery blue. He's preparing, you sense, for distillation, a process of purifying and separating substances through heating and cooling. This wasn't just about making things cleaner. In alchemical thought, distillation was a symbolic act of spiritual refinement, of separating the pure from the impure, the noble from the base. It was the universe's most tedious filter coffee, except the goal was enlightenment, not just a caffeine jolt. With a pair of slender tongs, he carefully lifts one of the vials, holding it up to the weak light that filters through a grimy window. He scrutinizes the liquid within, turning it slowly, as if searching for hidden truths in its depths. His brow is furrowed in concentration, but there's a certain serenity in his movements, a meditative quality that suggests he has performed this precise action hundreds, perhaps thousands of times. There's an undeniable grace to the practiced hand, even when the task at hand involves trying to coax precious metals from common dirt. A major historical fact to gently place in your drifting consciousness is that mercury, despite its known toxicity, was considered by many alchemists to be one of the fundamental principles of matter, alongside sulfur and salt. Mercury represented the volatile, spiritual, and feminine principle, while sulfur embodied the fixed, combustible, and masculine principle. Salt, often seen as the mediating element, held them together. It was a kind of proto-periodic table, but instead of atomic numbers, they had cosmic dances and gender roles for elements. This conceptual framework, rooted in ancient Greek philosophy and further developed by Arab scholars, was paramount to how alchemists understood and manipulated substances. They weren't just mixing things randomly. They were engaging in a profound philosophical dialogue with the very fabric of existence. An obscure, somewhat unsettling cultural tidbit from the Renaissance is the belief in alchemist, a universal solvent capable of dissolving any substance. While it sounds incredibly useful, the obvious logical flaw, what do you store it in, was rarely addressed in the more enthusiastic claims. Imagine trying to explain to an alchemist that if their ultimate goal was to dissolve everything, they might end up with no laboratory left. It's the ultimate paradox, isn't it? A bit like having a map to everything, but no way to actually get anywhere. The alchemist places the vial into a specially designed apparatus, a small glass still that connects to another receiving flask via a coiled glass tube known as a condenser. The whole setup is nestled over a gentle flame, carefully regulated to maintain a constant, low heat. The liquid inside the vial begins to warm, a tiny wisp of vapor rising from its surface. He watches it with the patient gaze of someone who understands that true transformation rarely happens in a hurry. The air in the workshop, already heavy, now takes on a faint, almost imperceptible sweetness, the aroma of the evaporating liquid. It's not quite a perfume, but rather the ghost of one, a subtle suggestion of something new being born. You feel the gentle warmth from the small flame, a comforting presence that seems to deepen the tranquility of the space. The soft hiss continues, a constant reminder that something somewhere is slowly, patiently changing. The crucible, now laden with carefully prepared lead fragments, sits patiently beside the glowing mouth of the largest furnace. Its heavy earthenware form seems to absorb the very light around it, a silent vessel awaiting its fiery trial. The alchemist, his face illuminated by the flickering embers, now reaches for a small wooden box filled with various powdered minerals. This isn't just about heat and metal. It's about introducing specific medicines or ferments that were believed to aid the transformation. Think of it as adding a pinch of cosmic fairy dust, only the fairy dust is actually ground up ores and mysterious compounds, all designed to coax the lead into a more refined state. He selects a powder that shimmers with a deep, almost iridescent purple, a color that seems to defy the dim light of the workshop. With utmost care, he sprinkles a small amount over the lead in the crucible. It's a delicate gesture, as if he's seasoning a very important, very expensive, and potentially world-changing meal. The purple dust settles on the dull gray metal, a stark, beautiful contrast that hints at the profound changes he hopes to invoke. This isn't just a chemical reaction. It's a spiritual one, where the base is elevated to the noble. A significant belief within alchemical thought was the concept of sympathies and antipathies between substances. This meant that certain materials were thought to naturally attract or repel others, or to be in sympathy with specific planets or astrological influences. For example, gold was often associated with the sun, silver with the moon, and lead with Saturn. This intricate web of correspondences guided their choice of ingredients and the timing of their experiments. It was a kind of ancient cosmic dating app for elements, where everyone had a pre-assigned partner, whether they liked it or not. An obscure cultural tidbit that might make you ponder the strange pathways of human ingenuity is the historical use of urine in alchemical processes. Yes, really. It was considered a valuable source of certain compounds, particularly salts, and its spirits were believed to possess unique transforming properties. So, while our alchemist is currently dealing with more traditional minerals, imagine the dedication of those who truly committed to every possible alchemical ingredient. It certainly puts a new spin on the phrase, waste not, want not, doesn't it? The alchemist gently pushes the crucible into the roaring mouth of the furnace. The heat immediately intensifies, radiating outwards in palpable waves. The flames lick greedily at the earthenware, eager to begin their work. He adjusts a series of dampers, fine-tuning the airflow to control the temperature with remarkable precision, his eyes keenly observing the subtle shifts in the flame's color. The lid, once dull and inert, begins to shimmer, then glow, slowly succumbing to the intense heat. It starts to melt, transforming from solid chunks into a molten, silvery pool. The air around the furnace crackles with the intense energy, a low, guttural growl that speaks of elemental forces at play. You feel the wave of warmth, a comforting, almost drowsy heat that envelops you, pulling you deeper into the quiet intensity of the moment. The light from the molten lead dances on the walls, a shifting liquid gold that for a fleeting moment almost convinces you that the transformation has already begun. The molten lead in the crucible glows with an internal vibrant heat, a liquid silver in the heart of the roaring furnace. It swirls and eddies gently, catching and refracting the light from the flames, creating miniature, shifting patterns on the alchemist's face. He watches it with an unwavering gaze, his concentration so profound it feels almost palpable. This stage, known as the dissolution, was considered vital. The breaking down of the original matter was necessary before it could be rebuilt in a more perfect form. It's like deconstructing a broken toy before you can put it back together as a magnificent gold-plated robot. The air is thick with the scent of hot metal and something else, something subtly sweet and smoky, as if the very elements are whispering their secrets into the atmosphere. The alchemist, with a long, slender iron rod, carefully stirs the molten lead, his movements slow and deliberate. He's not just mixing. He's performing a ritual, encouraging the base metal to release its impurities, to open itself to transformation. This wasn't merely a physical process. Alchemists believed it mirrored the purification of the human soul, a core alchemical concept essential to understanding their quest was the idea of solve et coagula, dissolve and coagulate. This principle dictated that matter must first be broken down into its primal components before it could be reunited and perfected into a new, higher form. This applied not only to metals, but also to spiritual development, where one's ego or perceived flaws had to be dissolved before true wisdom could coagulate. It was a philosophical blueprint for transformation, applicable to everything from lead ingots to enlightenment. Historians still debate the extent to which alchemists consciously separated the practical chemical work from their spiritual interpretations. An obscure, yet charming, cultural tidbit of the era involves the widespread use of animal metaphors in alchemical texts. The process of turning lead into gold was often likened to a bird, typically a black raven, transforming through various colors until it became a white swan and finally a phoenix, rising from the ashes in golden glory. So, imagine a Renaissance alchemist explaining their work by saying, "My lead is currently a very moody raven, but soon it will be a majestic, gold-feathered phoenix." It certainly adds a whimsical touch to what might otherwise be quite dry scientific treatises. The furnace hums its steady, comforting tune, a lullaby of fire and metal. The alchemist continues to stir, his face impassive, yet his eyes hold a deep, quiet intensity. He occasionally mutters under his breath, perhaps an incantation, perhaps just a reminder to himself about the precise timing, or maybe just a quiet complaint about the fumes. The molten lead now seems to shimmer with an internal light that is almost golden, a trick of the furnace's intense glare, or perhaps a fleeting glimpse of the future. You feel the profound heat radiating from the furnace, a comforting, heavy blanket that settles over you, inviting you to relax even deeper into this ancient narrative. The persistent shimmer of the molten metal, the deep thrum of the fire, and the quiet dedication of the alchemist create a sense of timeless pursuit, a gentle invitation to simply observe, and perhaps to drift. The molten lid in the crucible, now a restless, shimmering pool, begins to slowly change its demeanor. The initial silvery gleam fades, suddenly replaced by a duller, almost grayish film spreading across its surface. This, the alchemist knows, is the caput mortuum, or death's head, the residue, the impure dross that rises to the top during the calcination process. It's the alchemical equivalent of scum on a boiling pot. Only this scum is philosophically significant. He watches it with a calm intensity, his patience an unyielding force in the face of chemical stubbornness. He understands that this seemingly undesirable byproduct is a necessary step, a sign that the transformation is indeed underway, albeit in its less glamorous, more challenging phases. He reaches for a long, thin skimmer made of some heat-resistant alloy, and with meticulous care, he begins to gently scrape the dark film from the surface of the molten metal. Each movement is slow, deliberate, a quiet choreography of removal. The removed dross collects in a small waiting basin nearby, a testament to the impurities being purged. The air, already warm from the furnace, now carries a faint, almost metallic tang mixed with a subtle, earthy odor, like dust after a long drought. You feel the profound heat from the furnace, a comforting, almost drowsy warmth that seems to settle deep into your bones, encouraging a peaceful, reflective state. A profound and often overlooked aspect of alchemical thinking was its deeply symbolic and spiritual dimension. For many practitioners, the physical processes they enacted in the laboratory were direct metaphors for spiritual purification and enlightenment. The transformation of base metals into gold wasn't just about wealth. It represented the ascent of the human soul from a state of imperfection to spiritual perfection, with the Philosopher's Stone often seen as a symbol of divine wisdom. This fusion of the material and the mystical meant that an alchemist's laboratory was as much a sacred space as a scientific one, where every retort and crucible held philosophical weight. Historians still debate the precise balance between genuine chemical experimentation and spiritual allegories in various alchemists' work. An obscure cultural tidbit that might bring a sleepy smile to your face is the alchemical symbolism of the peacock's tail, or cauda pavonis. This was a visually spectacular stage in the great work, where the substance undergoing transformation would exhibit a dazzling array of iridescent colors, blues, greens, purples, and reds, before settling into a more uniform hue. It was a moment of fleeting beauty, a rainbow in the crucible, eagerly anticipated by alchemists as a sign of progress. Imagine painstakingly working for weeks, only for your concoction to suddenly burst into a flamboyant display of color. It's almost as if the chemicals were trying to put on a show just for you. The alchemist, having cleared the surface of the molten lead, now adds another small, carefully measured pinch of a different powder. This one, a fine, shimmering white. It dissolves almost instantly, stirring the molten metal into a gentle, internal agitation. The liquid, once dull, takes on a subtle pearlescent sheen, a quiet promise of what might be. He leans closer, his eyes narrowed, scrutinizing the delicate dance within the crucible. The hum of the furnace continues, a steady, unwavering drone, and the distant drip-drip of the earlier distillation provides a soft, rhythmic counterpoint. This is the patience required, the endless cycle of trial and observation, the belief that somewhere within the mundane lies the miraculous. The very air seems to hold its breath, waiting for the next subtle shift, the next whisper of transformation. The pearlescent sheen on the surface of the molten lid in the crucible persists, a fragile, hopeful glimmer amidst the furnace's fiery embrace. It's a fleeting beauty, like a pearl suspended in liquid fire, a subtle shift that speaks volumes to the alchemist. He watches it with quiet satisfaction, a small, almost imperceptible nod of approval. He understands that these subtle changes, these almost invisible indications, are more significant than any dramatic fireworks. They are the quiet affirmations that his laborious process is indeed moving forward, inch by painstaking inch, towards the elusive goal. He now takes up a small handheld bellows, its leather sides worn and supple, and with gentle, rhythmic squeezes, he directs a stream of air into the furnace. This isn't about intensifying the heat, but about precisely controlling the atmosphere around the crucible, perhaps to introduce oxygen or to encourage the expulsion of specific volatile elements. The soft whoosh-whoosh of the bellows adds another layer to the symphony of the workshop, a steady, comforting rhythm that reinforces the deliberate pace of his work. It's the kind of repetitive sound that might make you feel deliciously drowsy, like the gentle lapping of waves on a distant shore. A fundamental alchemical concept, often depicted in their intricate symbolic diagrams, was the idea of the marriage of the sun and moon, or the chemical wedding. This represented the perfect union of opposing principles, masculine and feminine, believed to be essential for the creation of the Philosopher's Stone and, by extension, gold. This wasn't just a quaint metaphor. It reflected a deep philosophical understanding of balance and integration necessary for creation, both in the physical and spiritual realms. Imagine trying to explain to a modern chemist that they need to consider the gender of their chemicals before mixing them. It certainly complicates the laboratory safety manual. An obscure, yet strangely persistent, cultural tidbit from the era is the belief in alchemical dreams. Many alchemists meticulously recorded their dreams, believing that the subconscious mind, when deeply immersed in the great work, could receive divine or intuitive guidance on the processes. So, if you were an alchemist and dreamt of a green lion devouring the sun, you might interpret it as a crucial step in the nigredo phase. It added another dimension to their already complex methodology, blending the scientific pursuit with a profound reliance on intuition and the unseen. Perhaps your own sleepy drifts through this story are a modern form of alchemical dreaming, albeit without the pressure of producing actual gold. The alchemist continues with the bellows, his movements fluid and unhurried. The faint pearlescent glow in the crucible maintains its delicate presence, a fragile beacon of hope in the intense heat. He occasionally glances at a small hourglass sitting on a nearby workbench, its sand slowly, inexorably trickling down. Time, in this workshop, is not a frantic rush but a patient companion, an endless current through which transformations occur. The air around the furnace remains warm, heavy with the subtle scent of metal and heat, a comfortable cocoon that invites you to simply be present, to observe the slow, deliberate dance of matter under the alchemist's watchful eye. The quiet hum of the furnace, the gentle whoosh of the bellows, and the soft, almost imperceptible shimmer of the molten metal combine to create a deeply calming, hypnotic atmosphere, perfect for letting your thoughts gently untangle and drift. The alchemist steps back from the furnace, the gentle whoosh of the bellows now a fading echo in the cavernous workshop. The molten lead, though no longer visibly shimmering with that fleeting pearlescence, still holds a profound heat, radiating a steady warmth that feels almost tangible. He reaches for a set of long, heavy iron tongs, their ends blackened and scarred from countless encounters with intense heat. His movements remain unhurried, a testament to years of practice and a deep respect for the volatile nature of his materials. He's like a seasoned chef, handling a very hot, potentially explosive soufflé. With a practiced grip, he carefully lifts the crucible from the furnace. The weight of it seems immense, a solid mass of potential and contained energy. The air around the crucible shimmers with heat, distorting the light, making the very space around it ripple like disturbed water. He carries it to a sturdy, heat-resistant stone slab in the center of the workshop, where a waiting mold made of tightly packed clay lies open. This mold is intricately carved, not for a simple ingot, but for a complex, almost artistic shape, perhaps symbolic of the perfected form he envisions for the transformed metal. It's not just about making a brick of gold. It's about crafting a physical manifestation of philosophical ideal. A fascinating and sometimes unsettling practice in historical alchemy was the creation and use of alchemical eggs or philosopher's eggs. These were sealed glass vessels, often egg-shaped, containing various alchemical mixtures, meticulously heated over long periods in specialized furnaces. The sealed environment was believed to represent the womb of nature, allowing for slow, natural processes of transformation, mimicking the gestation of life. Imagine a giant, very slow cooker omelette, but instead of breakfast, you're hoping for immortality. This concept underscored the alchemists' belief in natural processes, even as they tried to accelerate and control them. An obscure, yet somewhat melancholic cultural tidbit from this period is the widespread belief in the alchemist's personal sacrifice. Many practitioners lived reclusive, ascetic lives, often in poverty, dedicating their entire existence to the great work. They saw their labor not as a means to personal gain, but as a sacred duty, a striving for knowledge and perfection. So, while you might imagine them counting their future golden coins, many were more concerned with the purity of their intentions and the spiritual elevation of their craft. It's a bit like being a professional athlete who loves the game so much they forget to check their bank account. The alchemist carefully pours the molten lead into the waiting mold. The liquid metal flows with a viscous grace, filling every crevice of the intricate carving, its surface glowing with a dull, orange-red light. The scent of hot metal intensifies, a raw, primal odor that fills the workshop. He watches as the liquid slowly settles, cooling rapidly as it makes contact with the clay. A faint sizzle, like water on a hot stone, escapes from the mold as the metal begins to solidify. He doesn't touch it, merely observes, allowing nature to take its course. The quiet hum of the now empty furnace recedes into the background, replaced by the profound silence of creation. You feel the lingering heat in the air, a ghost of the fiery intensity that just passed, and the slow, quiet sense of anticipation as the metal begins its silent transformation within the mold. The workshop settles into a deep, anticipatory quiet, punctuated only by the occasional creak of timbers and the distant, muffled sounds of the city outside. The recently cast metal, still radiating a significant warmth, lies nestled within its clay mold, a hidden promise slowly cooling. The alchemist hovers over it, his hands clasped, a study in focused patience. This period of cooling and solidification was crucial, a moment when the earlier fiery chaos gives way to form and structure. It's the moment when the cake comes out of the oven, and you just have to wait for it to cool before you can see if it's a masterpiece or a dense brick. He doesn't rush, recognizing that premature disturbance could ruin hours, if not days, of careful work. His gaze is fixed on the mold, a silent conversation passing between man and metal, a communion of hope and expectation. The air, though still holding the faint metallic tang, now feels calmer, the previous intensity of the furnace a fading memory. The dancing shadows cast by the oil lamp seem to lengthen, stretching like tired limbs across the uneven floor, inviting you deeper into the somnolent peace of the scene. A significant philosophical underpinning of alchemy, often tied to their understanding of matter, was the concept of the prima materia, or first matter. This was not a specific substance, but rather an amorphous, undifferentiated primordial substance from which all things were believed to originate. Alchemists aimed to reduce their chosen material back to this pure, foundational state through processes like calcination and dissolution, believing that once this first matter was achieved, it could then be perfected and transformed into any desired substance, including gold. It was the ultimate raw material, the blank canvas of the universe, waiting for the alchemist's brush. Historians still debate the extent to which prima materia was considered a tangible substance versus a purely conceptual idea. An obscure, yet oddly logical, cultural tidbit of the era is the emphasis on the alchemist's moral purity. It was widely believed that a morally corrupt or impure alchemist would never succeed in the great work, even if their technical procedures were flawless. The transformation of matter was seen as intrinsically linked to the transformation of the self, meaning a truly successful alchemist had to be a virtuous and spiritually aligned individual. So, imagine having to pass a morality test just to get into chemistry class. It certainly raises the stakes on getting an A, doesn't it? After what feels like an eternity, but is perhaps only half an hour, the alchemist slowly, carefully, begins to unearth the solidified metal from its mold. He works with deliberate, gentle movements, chipping away the clay with small, precise tools. The soft scraping sounds, like a beetle meticulously excavating its home, are the only disruptions to the profound quiet. As the last fragments of clay fall away, the form of the cast metal is revealed. It's still dull, a dark, heavy gray, far from the gleaming gold he seeks. There's no sudden miracle, no dramatic flash of brilliance, just the raw, unadorned product of the calcination. He holds it in his hand, feeling its weight, its temperature, its quiet resistance. He examines it closely, turning it over and over, his eyes scanning for any subtle sign, any infinitesimal clue that might hint at progress. It's a moment of quiet assessment, a silent dialogue between the dreamer and the tangible reality of his tireless work. The light from the oil lamp flickers, casting long, wavering shadows that seem to dance in time with your slow, calm breathing, drawing you ever deeper into the ancient quiet of this space. The dull, heavy gray ingot, freshly extracted from its clay womb, rests in the alchemist's open palm. It's undeniably lead, still stubbornly itself, resisting the grand ambition of gold. He turns it over, feeling its cool, dense weight, a physical manifestation of the unyielding nature of base metals. There's no dramatic disappointment, no sigh of resignation. Instead, a quiet, almost scholarly curiosity flickers in his eyes as he examines the surface for subtle imperfections, for clues about the process he just completed. It's the dedication of a scientist, or perhaps a very patient detective, searching for a single missed detail in a complex, ongoing mystery. He then places the ingot onto a small, carved wooden stand beside the larger tome. He selects a different, smaller book, its pages filled with intricate drawings of furnaces and distillation apparatuses. This is his practical guide, his troubleshooting manual, filled with empirical observations and the accumulated wisdom of generations of alchemists. He leafs through it slowly, tracing diagrams with his finger, cross-referencing his own mental notes with the printed word. He's looking for the next step, the next subtle adjustment in temperature, the next combination of ferments that might unlock the stubborn secrets of the lead. This continuous process of refinement, of incremental improvement based on observation, was a hallmark of their craft, a very early form of iterative design, a crucial alchemical principle. Deeply intertwined with the quest for the Philosopher's Stone was the concept of the elixir of life, or universal panacea. This was believed to be a substance that could not only transmute metals, but also cure all diseases, extend life indefinitely, and even grant spiritual enlightenment. For many alchemists, the material gold was merely a byproduct, or even a symbol, of this far grander, more profound achievement. Imagine if your doctor's prescription also promised eternal youth and wisdom. It certainly makes a routine checkup sound more exciting. Historians still debate whether the pursuit of gold or the elixir of life held primary importance for most alchemists. An obscure, yet delightfully eccentric, cultural tidbit from the Renaissance concerns the widespread belief in elementals. These were mythical beings associated with the four classical elements: gnomes, undines, sylphs, and salamanders. Alchemists, especially those with a more mystical bent, sometimes invoked or believed they interacted with these elemental spirits, seeking their aid in the transformative processes. So, our alchemist might, in his mind, be whispering to a tiny salamander spirit in the furnace, asking it to be particularly efficient with the heat. It's certainly a more whimsical approach to laboratory management than your standard safety protocols. The alchemist, having consulted his texts, now meticulously cleans and prepares a new crucible. He seems to be resetting for another, perhaps slightly different approach. He selects a small amount of what looks like fine reddish sand from a labeled jar. This, you gather, is cinnabar, a mineral form of mercury sulfide, a vital component in many alchemical recipes. He weighs it precisely on a small brass scale, its delicate balance arms swaying gently before settling. The workshop air, though still holding its unique blend of aromas, feels lighter now, infused with the quiet resolve of fresh beginnings. The distant sounds of the city are a soft hum, a distant, reassuring presence that allows you to fully immerse yourself in the methodical calm of the workshop. You feel a gentle ease settling over you, as if the alchemist's unwavering patience is contagious, inviting you to simply breathe and observe the slow, deliberate dance of hopeful transformation. The newly prepared crucible, gleaming faintly in the soft lamplight, now holds its delicate measure of reddish cinnabar. The alchemist hovers over it, his hands poised, a silent symphony of anticipation and precision. He then takes a small, clear glass pipette, its slender form reflecting the ambient light, and carefully draws up a few drops of a viscous, almost oily liquid from a stopper vial. This, you intuit, is a philosophical mercury or some specially prepared volatile spirit, considered crucial for activating the dormant potential within the cinnabar. It's the alchemical equivalent of adding the yeast to the dough, hoping to spark a profound, invisible process. He gently releases the drops onto the cinnabar in the crucible. The liquid immediately begins to react, a faint, almost imperceptible hiss rising from the mixture, and a subtle plume of whitish vapor curls upwards, quickly dissipating into the dusty air. The scent in the workshop shifts, a sharper, more metallic tang now mingling with the earthy notes, a subtle signal of the chemical dance commencing. He watches, utterly still, his eyes intensely focused on the almost invisible reactions taking place, searching for any subtle indication of success or failure. A significant practical concern for Renaissance alchemists, often leading to unforeseen complications, was the pervasive presence of impurities in their raw materials. Without modern chemical analysis, they often worked with ores and compounds containing unknown contaminants, which could drastically alter the course of their experiments, leading to unexpected reactions or the failure of the great work. It's like trying to bake a cake with flour that secretly contains sawdust and glitter. No wonder their recipes were so complex and often required endless adjustments and redos. This inherent variability contributed to the mystical aura of alchemy, as unpredictable outcomes were sometimes attributed to cosmic forces rather than simple contamination. An obscure, yet rather poignant, cultural tidbit from the era is the concept of alchemical blindness. Prolonged exposure to toxic fumes, particularly from mercury and lead, often led to various neurological and physical ailments among alchemists, including visual impairment. While not literal blindness, it was a slow, insidious degradation of their senses and health. So, when our alchemist rubs his temples or squints at a retort, it might not just be concentration, but the quiet toll of his chosen path. It's a sobering reminder that the pursuit of knowledge, especially in its early, unrefined forms, often came at a profound personal cost. The alchemist, satisfied with the initial reaction, carefully places the crucible with its cinnabar and mercury mixture into a smaller, secondary furnace, specifically designed for a more moderate, sustained heat. This wasn't the fiery roar of the primary furnace, but a gentler, more controlled warmth, designed to encourage a slow, patient transformation. The hum from this smaller furnace is softer, a quieter, more insistent drone, like a lullaby for bubbling chemicals. He adjusts the vents, regulating the airflow with a practiced ease, his movements almost meditative. The air around this furnace warms subtly, a comforting presence that seems to deepen the tranquility of the space. You feel the gentle warmth, the soft hum, and the profound, patient dedication of the alchemist as he continues his quiet, relentless pursuit, inch by slow inch, towards the elusive, golden dream. The gentle, persistent hum of the furnace acts like a continuous soft whisper, inviting you to drift deeper into the story. to let your thoughts become as fluid and unhurried as the transforming elements themselves. The smaller furnace emits a steady, purring hum, a gentle counterpoint to the distant sounds of a Renaissance morning slowly awakening. Within, the crucible containing the cinnabar and philosophical mercury simmers with a subtle internal energy. The alchemist, having set this new process in motion, now turns to a series of intricately drawn charts spread across a large wooden table. These aren't just astronomical charts, though they feature prominently. They are complex diagrams mapping out not just the positions of planets and stars, but also their alchemical correspondences and the specific virtues or energies they were believed to impart. He uses a slender brass compass to measure angles and distances between celestial bodies, his brow furrowed in deep concentration. He's not merely observing the heavens. He's calculating the precise moment for the next crucial step, a moment when the cosmic influences would be most propitious for the transformation he seeks. This intricate dance between earthly elements and celestial rhythms was fundamental to their practice. You feel a gentle breeze waft through an open window, carrying the faint scent of baking bread from a nearby street, a grounding detail that contrasts beautifully with the celestial mathematics unfolding before you. A central tenet of alchemical philosophy was the concept of the as above, so below, derived from the emerald tablet of Hermes Trismegistus. This principle suggested that processes occurring in the macrocosm were mirrored in the microcosm, and vice versa. Therefore, understanding the heavens was believed to provide keys to understanding the transformation of matter on Earth, and vice versa. It was the ultimate unified field theory, centuries before anyone even thought of quantum physics, just with more stars and fewer equations. Historians still debate the practical application versus the purely philosophical interpretation of this hermetic principle. An obscure, yet utterly captivating, cultural tidbit from the era is the widespread practice of chemical allegories in literature and art. Many Renaissance poets and artists used alchemical symbols and narratives to subtly convey deeper spiritual or philosophical messages, often unrelated to actual chemical processes. Think of it as a hidden code, woven into plays, poems, and paintings, where a green dragon might represent the raw, untamed spirit of nature, rather than a literal reptilian creature you'd find in a retort. It's a bit like a modern movie that's secretly a metaphor for the internet, only far more convoluted and without the helpful online explainers. The alchemist, satisfied with his calculations, makes a small, precise mark on one of the charts. He then returns to the smaller furnace, his movements now infused with a renewed sense of purpose. He gently opens a small vent, allowing a controlled amount of fresh air to enter, subtly altering the internal atmosphere of the furnace. The faint hum changes pitch almost imperceptibly, a quiet response to his careful manipulation. The air around the furnace, always warm, now feels imbued with a subtle, expectant energy, as if the very elements are holding their breath. You feel the profound calm that settles over the workshop, a quiet assurance that this man, with his endless patience and unwavering belief, is utterly absorbed in his timeless quest. The soft glow from the furnace, the muted sounds of the distant city, and the alchemist's quiet dedication combine to create a deeply soothing atmosphere, a perfect invitation to simply rest and let the historical narrative unfold at its own gentle pace. The alchemist, having performed his astrological calculations and adjusted the furnace, now sits on a low, three-legged stool, observing the smaller furnace with an almost meditative stillness. His hands are resting on his knees, his gaze fixed on the glowing embers, the faint heat radiating outwards in lazy waves. This period of sustained, precise heating, often referred to as digestion, was critical. It was believed to allow the substances to mature and interact deeply, much like food slowly cooking in a stew, melding its flavors over time. He is a sentinel of transformation, his patience a tangible force in the quiet space. The air in the workshop is now uniformly warm, a comforting blanket that seems to absorb all sharp edges and anxieties. The scent of faint sulfur and something earthy, like warm clay, pervades the atmosphere. Not unpleasant, but distinctive. You can almost feel the slow internal churn of the cinnabar and mercury within the crucible, a tiny invisible dance of atoms patiently rearranging themselves. It's the kind of deep, ambient quiet that lets your own thoughts unfurl and drift, unhurried and unburdened. A frequently encountered challenge for alchemists, often leading to setbacks and explosions, was the volatile nature of mercury and its compounds when heated. While essential to their theories of transmutation, mercury could produce dangerous fumes and unpredictable reactions, if not handled with extreme care and precise temperature control. Many alchemists suffered from mercury poisoning, leading to tremors, mental deterioration, and even death. It's a sobering reminder that their pursuit of perfection often came with very real and very toxic risks. Historians still debate the extent to which early alchemists understood the dangers of the substances they routinely handled. An obscure, yet charmingly optimistic, cultural tidbit of the era relates to the belief in vegetable gold. Some alchemists believed that true gold could be cultivated like a plant, growing from a seed of the Philosopher's Stone in a specially prepared earth. This wasn't about growing literal gold nuggets on trees, but a metaphorical understanding of growth and natural process applied to metallurgy. Imagine trying to explain to a modern farmer that instead of planting corn, they should be nurturing tiny gold seeds. It certainly puts a different spin on agricultural yield forecasts, doesn't it? The alchemist reaches for a small silver spoon, exquisitely crafted, and very carefully dips it into a nearby jar, extracting a minuscule amount of a shimmering silvery powder. This, you realize, is likely a tiny fraction of a previously synthesized ferment or seed from an earlier, perhaps partially successful alchemical work. It's the equivalent of a sourdough starter, something small but potent, carrying the essence of previous transformations. He holds it aloft for a moment, letting it catch the faint light, a spark of potential in the dimness. He doesn't add it yet. He simply holds it, a silent promise hovering in the air. The consistent hum of the furnace, the gentle warmth, and the alchemist's unwavering focus combine to create an immersive, tranquil space where the boundaries between past and present begin to gently dissolve, allowing you to simply exist in this quiet moment of historical pursuit. The delicate silvery powder in the alchemist's spoon glitters faintly in the lamplight, a tiny constellation of potential. He holds it with an almost reverential care, his gaze still fixed on the purring furnace, waiting for the precise, astrologically determined moment to introduce this precious ingredient. This wasn't just about throwing things into a pot. It was a deeply timed, almost ceremonial act, where every addition was considered a vital intervention in the cosmic drama of transformation. He is conducting an orchestra of elements, and he must wait for the exact cue. The rhythmic hum of the furnace is a constant companion, a deep, resonant sound that seems to vibrate through the very stone of the workshop. It's the kind of sound that encourages long, slow blinks, leading you gently into a state of profound relaxation. The air, still warm and faintly metallic, feels alive with the slow, patient energy of change. You imagine the tiny particles within the cinnabar and mercury, slowly reconfiguring themselves, a silent, microscopic dance of destiny. A significant intellectual current that deeply influenced Renaissance alchemy was Hermeticism, a philosophical and spiritual tradition based on the writings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. This body of thought emphasized the interconnectedness of all things, the idea of a universal spirit, and the potential for human enlightenment through secret knowledge. Hermetic texts often contained allegorical references to alchemical processes, blurring the lines between spiritual work and material transformation. It was the ancient world's self-help guru meets theoretical physicist, all rolled into one mysterious, often obscure package. This intellectual foundation provided a rich framework for alchemists, elevating their craft beyond mere chemistry. An obscure, yet rather beautiful cultural tidbit from this period involves the symbolism of the green lion. This was a powerful alchemical symbol, often depicted as a dragon or lion devouring the sun. It represented the corrosive power of certain acids, particularly vitriol, which were used to devour or purify base metals. It symbolized the aggressive, destructive phase of transformation necessary before the creation of gold could occur. So, when an alchemist spoke of feeding the green lion, they weren't planning a trip to the zoo. They were preparing a powerful chemical reaction. It adds a touch of fierce poetry to the otherwise methodical work, doesn't it? Suddenly, the alchemist's posture shifts, a subtle tightening of his shoulders, a slight tilt of his head. He senses it, the precise moment he has been waiting for. With a swift, fluid movement, he gently opens the small door of the furnace and, with the utmost care, drops the shimmering silvery powder into the crucible. There is no dramatic flourish, no explosive reaction. Instead, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper of sound escapes the crucible. Like a tiny sigh, and a wisp of vapor, almost invisible, curls upwards before vanishing. He quickly closes the furnace door, sealing the magic within. He leans closer, his eyes fixed on the small crack around the door, as if he can peer through the metal and stone to witness the unseen transformation. The air in the workshop seems to hum with a heightened, yet still profoundly quiet, energy. You feel a gentle wave of expectation, a shared sense of profound hope, as the alchemist returns to his patient vigil, leaving the elements to their quiet, fiery dance. The alchemist remains fixed in his position, a statue of pure concentration before the quietly purring furnace. The air in the workshop is thick with the scent of potential, a complex aroma of hot metal, subtle sulfur, and something indescribably refined, like the essence of earth itself being transformed. He occasionally reaches out, not to open the furnace, but to gently touch the outer casing, feeling the heat, assessing the subtle vibrations, as if communicating directly with the transformation unfolding within. This quiet, almost intuitive connection to his work was as vital as any chemical formula. He's not just an operator. He's a participant, a partner in the elemental dance. The sounds are muted now, a soft, steady hum from the furnace, the distant, muffled calls of street vendors beginning their day in the alleys of what might be Florence or Venice. It's a backdrop that deepens the sense of immersion, allowing your mind to drift freely in this ancient, hopeful space. You feel the profound calm that emanates from the alchemist, his unwavering patience, a contagious force that settles over you, encouraging a peaceful, relaxed state. A significant alchemical theory that shaped their experimentation was the belief in the existence of tinctures, often conceived of as a less potent form of the Philosopher's Stone. These tinctures were thought to be able to tinge or transmute base metals, not necessarily into pure gold, but into silver or lesser noble metals. This concept allowed alchemists to celebrate partial successes, seeing them as steps on the path to the ultimate goal, rather than outright failures. It was their version of a progressive achievement system, where every little bit of progress was worth noting, even if it wasn't the final golden prize. Historians still debate the degree to which these tinctures were genuinely seen as alchemical successes or merely clever ways to explain away incomplete transmutations. An obscure, yet historically curious, cultural tidbit is the use of coded language in symbols and alchemical text to deter the uninitiated or to protect trade secrets. Many alchemists developed their own unique symbolic systems, making their writings incredibly difficult to decipher for anyone outside their inner circle. So, trying to follow an alchemical recipe was often like trying to read a very complicated, very ancient emoji puzzle where the emojis kept changing meaning depending on who wrote them. It's almost as if they didn't want everyone to figure out how to make gold, which, when you think about it, makes a certain amount of sleepy sense. The alchemist, after a long period of quiet observation, slowly rises from his stool. There's a subtle shift in the air, a quickening of unseen energy. He moves with a renewed sense of purpose, though still unhurried towards the furnace. He reaches for a pair of thick, padded gloves, their surfaces scorched and stiff, and with deliberate care, he unlatches the small, heavy door of the furnace. A wave of intense heat washes over you, carrying with it a concentrated burst of the workshop's peculiar aromas. He peers into the glowing interior, his face illuminated by the fiery light, his eyes scanning the crucible within. You feel a quiet surge of anticipation, a shared hope that after all this patience, after all these meticulous steps, something truly remarkable is about to be revealed within that fiery heart. The deep hum of the furnace fills the space, a comforting drone that promises secrets about to be unveiled, or at least, the next step on an endlessly fascinating journey. The intense orange glow from the open furnace paints the alchemist's face with flickering light, highlighting the lines of concentration etched around his eyes. He's completely absorbed, his gaze piercing the fiery depths, searching for the telltale signs of success. The air vibrates with the furnace's heat and the subtle, almost metallic scent of transformation. He reaches inside with his long iron tongs, their strong jaws designed to withstand the inferno, and carefully, with immense strength and precision, he extracts the crucible. It glows a vibrant, angry red, radiating a formidable heat that you can feel even from your ethereal vantage point. He carries the incandescent crucible to the stone slab, the heat shimmering in waves around it, distorting the air like a mirage. He places it down with a soft, resonant clang, a sound that echoes briefly in the quiet workshop. Now, the most crucial and anticipated moment, the revealing of the contents. He waits, allowing the crucible to cool just enough, the deep red slowly fading to a dull, almost menacing glow, before he can safely pour. This pause, though agonizing for the alchemist, is a vital step, allowing the metal to settle, to solidify, to truly reveal its nature after the fiery trial. A particularly intriguing aspect of alchemical symbolism, often depicted in their illustrations, was the rebus, or divine hermaphrodite. This figure represented the ultimate outcome of the chemical wedding, the perfect fusion of opposing principles into a unified, perfected whole. It symbolized the completion of the great work, the harmonious integration of all dualities, both in matter and in spirit. Imagine the profound philosophical depth underlying what might seem, at first glance, like a simple scientific experiment. Historians still debate the precise theological or philosophical intentions behind these complex symbolic representations. An obscure, yet somewhat amusing, cultural tidbit from the era is the widespread claims made by some charlatan alchemists. In a time when the line between genuine inquiry and outright fraud was often blurry, many opportunists would claim to have achieved the Philosopher's Stone, sometimes even producing fake gold through clever tricks, like alloying base metals with tiny amounts of actual gold, or using chemicals to give a golden sheen. It was the ancient world's version of snake oil salesmen, only with more mercury and slightly loftier promises. So, while our alchemist here is clearly sincere, you can imagine the cynical eye some might have cast upon his relentless pursuits. The alchemist finally reaches for a pair of heavy, iron pliers and, with a deep breath, he carefully tilts the glowing crucible. A stream of molten metal, no longer the dull silver of lead, but a rich, deep, almost coppery orange, pours out onto a waiting, preheated surface. It flows with a viscous, heavy grace, forming a small, irregular ingot. As it cools, the vibrant orange dims, slowly, to a dull, dark red. He watches, his face expressionless, until the metal has completely solidified. Then, with a gentle, almost tender touch, he picks up the still warm ingot. He turns it over and over in his hands, his eyes scrutinizing its surface, its weight, its color. It's not the brilliant, gleaming gold of his dreams. It's a dark, purplish black, heavy, and undeniably metallic, but not what he seeks. Not yet. A quiet sigh escapes him, a breath of profound, yet not despairing, acknowledgement. The light from the oil lamp flickers, casting long, wavering shadows that seem to dance in time with your slow, calm breathing, drawing you ever deeper into the ancient quiet of this space, into the persistent, beautiful pursuit of an impossible dream. The purplish-black ingot, the outcome of countless hours of diligent labor, rests in the alchemist's palm. It is heavy, cool to the touch now, a tangible result that, while not the ultimate triumph, is far from nothing. He does not frown, nor does he lament. Instead, a quiet, almost contemplative expression settles on his face. He traces a finger along its dark surface, a gesture not of defeat, but of deep reflection. This is the truth of the alchemical path, not always immediate, blinding success, but a continuous journey of learning, of incremental steps, of profound patience in the face of chemical stubbornness. He is a testament to perseverance, a quiet monument to human ambition. He places the ingot gently on his work table, alongside other samples, each a different shade, a different texture, a different story of transformation attempted. He then picks up his quill and, with meticulous precision, begins to update his grimoire, his hand moving with the practiced ease of someone documenting not just results, but the very nuances of his soul's journey. The soft scratch of the quill on parchment is the only sound, a quiet coda to the day's work. He notes the color, the weight, the reactions, the subtle variations in temperature, everything that could offer a clue for the next attempt. His work is endless, a perpetual cycle of hope, experimentation, and quiet learning. The workshop itself begins to recede, its sharp detail softening, its distinct aromas gently blending into a soothing, indistinct background. The flickering lamplight seems to dim, growing softer, warmer, casting everything in a gentle, hazy glow. The sounds of the distant city fade to an almost imperceptible hum, a whisper of a world carrying on, far removed from this quiet pursuit of elemental secrets. The alchemist, still bent over his notes, becomes a part of this softening landscape, his figure a timeless silhouette against the fading light. He is not just an individual. He is an archetype, representing the eternal human quest for understanding, for betterment, for the transmutation of the ordinary into the extraordinary, both in the material world and within the self. You feel a profound sense of peace settling over you, a gentle release from the weight of the day, as the very air around you grows softer, lighter. The long journey through the alchemist's workshop has reached its natural conclusion for the night, not with a bang, but with a quiet, lingering hum. The heat from the now cooling furnaces is a memory, a gentle warmth that fades like the last embers of a campfire. The scents of chemicals and earth give way to the clean, cool scent of approaching dawn, or perhaps simply the quiet neutrality of restful sleep. The intricate details of retorts and crucibles, of charts and symbols, gently blur, becoming soft forms in the encroaching stillness. Your own breathing grows deep and even, matching the slow, steady rhythm of this quiet, ancient world as it slips further into the comforting embrace of history. Let the dreams of transmutation, of turning the mundane into the magnificent, drift quietly with you now, a gentle, golden glow at the edge of your consciousness, as you surrender to the quiet, the calm, and the profound peace of a journey well traveled. Good night.